So I've opened up here the finished version of the gmdf file that we've been using, just so that we don't have to spend a bunch of time writing every single articulation. But obviously, once we're done with the articulation file, the gmdf, we want to know how to use those articulations in SDK. So I'm going to open up SDK, and I have the finished version of the drone model here. And if we want to manually use the articulations, we can open up the object of interest, open up its properties. We can go to 3D graphics, model, and then under this articulations frame, we can hit the view button, and it'll display all the articulations we have. So if I open up the Aurelia articulation, you'll remember that the Aurelia articulation has multiple different transformations, so we can just test those out, make sure that they are working correctly. But obviously, if you're wanting to make a nice video and take advantage of all the hard work that you put into making your gmdf file, you're going to want to make your articulations be a little bit more dynamic and not have to manually control them. For instance, if we're looking at the propellers of our drone here, obviously we want to spin them continuously, and we don't want to have to open up the manual articulations and continue doing that. So what we can do is we can open up the movie timeline tool. If we come to the top of the SDK UI here and we right click, we're going to enable the movie timeline toolbar. We can hit this blue button here at the beginning to open the movie timeline. And with the movie timeline open down here at the bottom of the UI, we're going to navigate up to the top left. We're going to hit this add button, the blue plus sign. And we want to add / edit object timeline. This is going to open up the object timeline window, which will allow you to select your object of interest. So we've already selected the drone, but if you wanted to articulate a different object, you would open up this drop down and select it here. With the correct object selected, we're going to come down to model articulations, drop that down, and you'll see all of the articulations that we've created for this 3D model. Some of them that have multiple transformations, like the Aurelia articulation that we were talking about, you'll have to drop that down to see the specific transformations. But the propellers, we only set up one transformation, the rotation transformation, so there's no drop down, and it's just the one articulation. So whichever articulations you're interested in animating, we're going to select that, and we're going to hit this arrow button in the middle to bring it from available properties over to shown on timeline. And we have to do that for however many articulations we're interested in. And once you've gathered all the ones that you are interested in, you can hit OK. Actually, let's also gather one of the move articulations just so we can make it look like the drone is actually flying. All this pop-up is saying, once you hit the OK button, is that SDK is going to create an articulation file for you, which is, of course, the file that drives your articulations. So you can manually make this file as well, and that SDK help page that talks about articulation files will be linked in the video description below. But if you want to make your articulations in SDK itself, we're using the movie timeline, as we've talked about. So I'm going to hit OK on this pop-up. And you'll see down here in the movie timeline that the 3 articulations that we're interested in have populated right down here. So what we can do is we're going to use this scrubber right here to find the time in the animation that we're interested in. So doesn't matter for demonstration purposes. We'll just leave it where it was. And what you do is you find the articulation that you're interested in, the track that it's on in the movie timeline, and you come to the scrubber where the red line is, and you want your cursor to turn from, the regular mouse cursor to this small little diamond with a plus in the middle. And if you click the red line when your cursor changes, it'll open up this edit articulation dialog. So for the propellers, this is kind of a simple articulation, but obviously if it's more complicated, you might have to do more work here. But for the propellers, we want it to spin from its default value of 0 all the way through to 360. So I'm going to change the end value to 360. I'll leave the start value as 0. The properties, we want to change those a little bit. The articulation name and the transformation name, you're generally not going to edit because you know which articulation you're editing from the movie timeline. But start time and duration, you'll probably want to mess with a little bit. So by default, the start time is going to populate with whatever the current animation time is. So we'll leave that alone for this case. But duration will determine how long it takes to go from the start value to the end value. So obviously, a propeller is going to be spinning kind of quickly. So we don't want it to take 1 minute to complete one rotation for the propellers. So maybe we'll say it takes 0.5 seconds for one rotation of a propeller to complete. Once we've set that value, we want to take heed of acceleration and deceleration. All these values are determining how long it takes for the articulation to reach full speed and consequently how long it takes to stop going full speed. So this is just like if you wanted a little bit more realistic motion. Obviously, maybe when a propeller is starting up initially, it's not going to immediately spin at its fastest rate. It's going to take a second to get up to full speed. So we'll leave acceleration and deceleration at 50%. And then down here, under repeating articulation, is where we'll hit our settings for continuous motion. So you're not going to set, in fact, for most articulations, you'll leave this setting as don't repeat. But for things like propellers or maybe tires, you'll want to obviously repeat that articulation while the object is moving. So we're going to change this value from don't repeat to repeat indefinitely. And we can change how long it's going to repeat. So I'll leave that at half a second, but maybe if you had a propeller that was changing its rate of rotation, then you might want to change how often it repeats. You could also set this to repeat until, like if you knew that the drone was going to stop flying at a certain point in your scenario, you could have it just repeat until that point in time. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to leave this as repeat indefinitely. Once you've set everything in your edit articulation window, you can go ahead and close that window, and you should see a corresponding articulation in the movie timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly set the other articulations, and I will return once those are set. Okay, so now we have set all of our articulations here in the movie timeline. I adjusted the propeller articulations ever so slightly, and I added this move X articulation. I'm going to reduce the size of the movie timeline so we can see our 3D graphics window a little bit better. And when I hit play, we'll see that it looks like the drone is actually flying and the propellers are spinning. So, as you can see, there's a lot going on in the movie timeline, but once you set up your articulations, you're going to have really nice looking movies, and you'll be able to impress your colleagues and your bosses. So thanks for joining us. We will see you in the next video when we talk about attach points.